Welcome to the Church of Obelisk. 734E is finally upon us. We finally get a new patch after languishing in 734D hell for eternity. And the people that expected some sort of huge patch will be disappointed, but this is a good, measured, minor patch. It's a lesser patch, so let's jump right in with the item changes. This is your reminder that Eternal Shroud actually still exists in this game. So this item was basically never bought for good reason, and this buff, I don't think it's enough, but we might occasionally see this item now, but I think it needs more. Then we have Hand of Midas and Heart of Tarask, both very much meta items, getting some minor nerf. This is not huge, it's not going to kill these items, but they're just going to be a little bit less efficient, and I really like that approach. I don't want them to just nerf Midas to make it unusable or anything like that. Same for Heart. It's fine for the items to be bought and popular, but they were just a little bit too much, and this is a good change. Then we see a minor buff to Vlad's and Helm of the Overlord, +1 armor. Vlad is kind of an overshadowed item. You just much rather have like a Solar Crest or a Drum that sort of do similar things, and they're just a little bit more efficient. Vlad can still be an okay item to buy, so it's just really nice to have Vlads for like your team and team fights. So if you're like a +4 or +5, it can be a good idea to buy a Vlad as like a third or a fourth item after you got the key items. Then you can get a Vlad, and they're just gonna offer a lot of bonuses that scale also pretty well into the late game. But Helm of the Overlord, the problem with this item is just that there's really only 2 heroes that buy the item, and even those 2 heroes, Beastmaster and Lycan, don't always buy it. I think the problem is not so much Overlord. I think the problem lies more in the Helm of the Dominator. It's just an item that doesn't seem very strong. It has like these offlaner, tanky offlaner kind of stats, and it gives you the creep access, which doesn't really fit together all that well. I think if they want to change Helm of Dominator in a way it's going to be more widely used, I think they just need to give it back some sort of aura. Like it used to have an attack speed aura or a damage aura. Give it back, something like that, and I think then the item will see more wide use. Then we have Pavis, which is an item that used to be very popular when it first came out, and then it kind of fell out of favor. I'm not exactly sure why, but it is a pretty strong item. It's a lot of protection for a single target. Gives a lot of nice mana regen as well. So I think this is a pretty strong item. It's kind of like a buff that reminds us that the item still exists, and we should buy this item sometimes. Now to the hero changes. First we have AA, who's pretty strong hero in the meta right now, getting some minor nerfs. Then we've got Bristleback. The max damage of Quill Spray is decreased, so this is if you have lots of sacks on you. The most damage you can ever take is now 500 instead of 550. And then Bristleback gets a nerf to the damage threshold. So this is how much damage you need to take before you throw out some quills. And this is increased at lower levels and the same at max level. What a lot of Bristlebacks would do in the last patch was to just keep Bristleback level 1. And this way you take more damage, and this means you also throw out more quills when you're being hit from behind. And this is now no longer going to be nearly as viable because you actually need 300 damage now instead of 225 at level 1. And then the Aghanim's also gets a nerf, 500 less cast range and also 3 more cooldown. So the Aghanim's not going to be quite as core anymore. This is not a huge nerf. Bristleback, I think, is still going to be viable in the right kind of games, but he's no longer going to be nearly as oppressive. Now we move on to Chaos Knight, and here we do see the big nerf. So -5 base damage. That is a huge deal. And also Chaos Strike lifesteal penalty against creeps increased from 40 to 70%. So previously you would do 60% lifesteal, and now you only do 30% lifesteal. So you do half as much lifesteal against the creeps as in the previous patch. That is a huge nerf. This is also an indirect nerf to Armlet, because it's no longer going to be quite as easy to keep up your HP when you're farming with Armlet. Then we also see an increase in mana cost of Phantasm. So I think we're going to see a lot less CK I don't know if the hero is dead, but he's definitely going to be much, much worse with these changes. Then we have Dark Willow, and we see a little bit of a cooldown reduction on Shadow Realm, and there's 2 seconds across the board, and in particular, this is going to make the Aghanim build a lot worse, because now you have 2 seconds more of downtime between Shadow Realm. So Carry Willow, I think, is completely dead with this, and even the sort of greedy pos 4 that goes from Midas and then into Aghanims, it's going to be quite a bit weaker with this. But the just regular, normal support Willow is hardly going to be affected by this. Dazzle. Bad Juju no longer disables Blink Daggers. That's a good change. Good mana nerf to Dazzle. Drow Ranger gets a slight buff to a multi-shot. And for Earth Spirit, the Rolling Bowler cooldown now begins when the current roll is completed. Since the ability only has a 4-second cooldown, this is actually kind of a big deal. But still, in the whole, given how strong Earth Spirit is, I think the hero is definitely going to be fine with this. Enigma gets a buff to Black Hole cooldown. I still think Enigma is going to be quite weak. Just the Gunnarsson laning stage and having slightly less cooldown on Black Hole, I don't think it's really going to make up for that. Then we have Grimstroke. Aghanim Shot Spell Lifesteal now has a 20% penalty against creeps. Okay, that's I don't think it's going to matter very much. Gyrocopter gets a little bit more damage on Rocket Barrage. Okay, minor buff to him, why not? Juggernaut gets a little bit of extra bonus damage on Omnislash at level 1 and level 2. It's not going to make a big difference. Then for Kunkka, the Rum damage reduction is now down to 35%. This used to be 50%, now it's 35%. Tidal Wave damage has also been decreased, and Torrent Storm has been nerfed a little bit. I don't think this is going to kill Kunkka, but like right now, Kunkka is the kind of hero you can just pick always in any kind of game as like either mid or off lane, and you're always going to have a decent game. And this is going to make it a little bit harder. Leshrac gets a minor buff to Lightning Storm, slow duration. Alright, why not? Lion gets a little bit of extra cast range on Earth Spike. It's actually 75 cast range, not nothing. Then we have Lycan extra Agi, so 2 base Agi and then 0.4 Agi gain. This is going to make Lycan hit a little bit harder, a little bit faster, give him a slightly more armor. It's not going to be a huge change. And even if we combine it with the buff to Vlad's, I don't think it's going to be enough to really bring Lycan back in the meta. But it's a nice little minor buff. Marcy gets a big increase in cast range for Sidekick. Then Muerta gets a bit of a nerf to the Calling. Necrophos gets a couple of mana nerfs. So more mana cost on Ghost Shroud. You only get 7 seconds instead of 8 seconds for each Heartstopper aura stack when you get a last hit. And then Aghanim Scepter health regen to decay decreased from 60 to 55. So Aghanim's slightly worse now, and also the Shard. It's going to have a little bit more cooldown, so you're not quite as mobile anymore. Primal Beast gets more mana cost and Trample. So I didn't even know this, that Trample mana cost went down with levels, but now it no longer doesn't. And then Pulverize, the ultimate, has a little bit more cooldown. It's still a fairly low cooldown ultimate, but now it's an extra 4 seconds. And then also level 25 talent is nerfed here. Shadow Shaman gets a buff to Hex. Didn't even know that Hex had damage amplification, but apparently now it has a 5% more. Okay, why not? Not a hero you see very often. Spectre, on the other hand, the hero that you see quite often, and she gets 1 less armor. That's definitely going to hurt a little bit, but not going to change too much. Next, Team Spirit Breaker just becomes Spirit Breaker again, and cooldown has increased in Charge of Darkness by 1 second. And also, Greater Bash no longer quite as good at farming. So this is a change that's more going to hurt post 3 Spirit Breaker. Timbersaw gets a bit of a buff. Now he's reducing 13% stat instead of just 10%. I'm not sure if that's going to be enough for the hero to come back in the meta. Tiny Avalanche, reduced mana cost at lower levels. Tiny struggles with mana, especially at the start, so this is gonna help. Tree Protector is now even slower, even more of a tree. And Leech Seed also. Leech Seed's very strong laning ability, gets -5 damage across the board, but I think Tree Protector is still gonna be fine. Weaver, pretty popular carry hero, sometimes also picked in other roles, now has a little bit more cooldown on Gemini attack, At lower levels, not going to change too much, but the laning stage is going to be a bit worse. Winter Wyvern now has a little bit more heal on Cold Embrace. Again, not going to change too much. Witch Doctor, a very oppressive hero in many pop games, but not necessarily very often seen in the pro scene. So they're going to give him less damage multiplier on the cask against creeps, so he's going to farm worse. But now Death Ward is going to be easier to use because it now automatically prioritizes heroes instead of creeps. But of course, you can control with the Death Ward attacks, so it's just going to make Witch Doctor a little bit easier to use, but he's going to be weaker. And then finally, Wraith King has less damage on their skeletons, so this is going to slow down the farming, and also means that in the laning stage you can no longer kill heroes quite as easily. So that's, I think, a very nice and targeted nerf. One hero that is conspicuously absent is Lone Druid, who is one of the strongest heroes in pubs right now, but didn't get touched here. Also, none of the items he likes to buy have been changed. So Lone Druid is only going to be stronger now because many of the other meta heroes have been nerfed. So I'll continue spamming Lone Druid. So I like this patch. Heroes were not really hit with the nerf hammer very much. The only one that really nerfed a lot was CK. So I appreciate that, and should make the game a little bit more fun to play, a little bit more balanced. If you want to see more content from me, do subscribe. And if you want to see something more right now, click on one of the videos here on the screen. And over this villain, I'll see you there.